Hey, friends of the planet. We're so excited to have some special guests with us for Earth Week today. And I wanted to introduce Jason Warwin, who is the co-founder and associate executive director of Brotherhood and Sister Soul. It's a youth development organization, and they do a lot more than that. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're really appreciative of your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So Jason, could you tell us a little bit more about Brotherhood, Sister Soul, and the type of work that you do and the places and spaces where you operate?
Sure. The Brotherhood Sister Soul is a social justice organization. We're based in Harlem, New York City. We really operate in three distinct spheres. First and foremost, we are an intensive and holistic youth development organization. And so we work primarily with Black and Latinx youth ages 8 through 22. We provide all different kinds of services for young folks, from rites of passage services and academic supports to college prep and career prep to organizing and leadership development, year-round holistic support. Secondly, we are an organization engaged in community organized, and we organize around issues that affect our young people and our community in general. So we're heavily focused on education and criminal and environmental justice, and our young people are at the forefront of organizing around those issues in their community and also in New York City as a whole. And then thirdly, we are engaged in professional development, and we work to educate educators around the country on our model, our youth development focus, and our particular model of rites of passage programming within schools and within community-based organizations.
That's really awesome. Could you just tell us a little bit more about how environmental injustice has impacted New York City and your communities?
We could talk about this one for a long time. There's a long list of ways in which environmental injustice has affected Harlem and New York City in general. I think I'll touch on a few. One of the most prevalent issues that we have is around air pollution. And you may not know this, but in Harlem, New York City, the rate of asthma and lung disease is over twice as high as any other part of the city. Our headquarters here are located just a quarter of a mile from one of the largest waste treatment centers in New York City. So that's spewing all types of carcinogens into the air all the time. We are on the island of Manhattan, and Harlem has 4 of the 7 bus depots that exist on Manhattan Island. So, there's been a concentration of those kinds of pollutants in our community as well. And then there are 2 power plants that are just across the river, less than a mile from our location as well. This idea of environmental racism has been a major issue. Why are these locations placed in certain communities, poor communities, communities of color? So that's one of the issues that we're dealing with regularly. Another is lack of green space. I think we struggle here with having access to parks and having access to open space where folks can engage in recreational activities. We know about the importance of green space for our environment, but also for our mental health, right? For our social and emotional wellness. And so that's another thing that's really lacking in our community. Another major problem in our community is food insecurity. We have about a third of our community live at or below the poverty line. And so before COVID, there was already an issue around folks having enough food in their homes. But COVID has only exacerbated that problem. Over 50% of the folks in our community have now expressed some level of food insecurity. And so that's been another, area of target for us. There aren't enough resources for healthy food options, right? A lot of people shop in bodegas that are, predominantly processed foods. So having access to healthy, fresh produce is a severe concern within our community.
To pivot the interview a little bit, we're so fortunate that we are able to talk to one of your youth leaders. So we have Koemi Peña with us today, and we wanted to ask a little bit more about what the actual youth component of this work looks like. So Koemi, thank you so much again for being with us. And I wanted to ask, what is your role within the organization and what spurred your interest in conservation? And maybe if you can talk a little bit about how many other students are involved in what this work looks like.
I've taken part of the environmental program specifically. There's 3 core groups that we try to separate in so that everybody gets their own idea of what the environment is to us and how it impacts our lives. So this year I'm part of the food empowerment program, and that is where we show the community about how different types of produce can benefit their lives. Like Jason said, they don't have a lot of options or knowledge to like choose from in the delis or bodegas. And so we kind of show them how they could use different produce in their like everyday meals. Actually, recently we did a cooking workshop with vegan quesadillas.
Oh, cool.
Because we showed them how they could use black beans instead of meat. There was also rice involved, but let's just say it was really delicious. Yeah, we do cooking workshops, and we kind of took a video of it, and we're trying to like get the community to see that they could also do stuff like this at home once they get the knowledge on where to like shop for the produce that they need. There's also other core groups like sustainable design, which kind of works on the community garden. They basically focus on construction and more like the heavy lifting. I think within this year or the past year, they created the greenhouse that we have in our community garden. The many young folks, myself included, actually helped build it. So that's one,
awesome.
Like, it was a great experience. You know, we worked with power tools, and never thought I would work with power tools in my life. And then lastly, we have horticultural sciences. They also work in the community garden, but they're more like with the plants. So they learn like what kind of herbs and like produce can like benefit the bodies, and like what can be used in like medicine. So that's what they mainly focus on. I know in the environmental program, there's at least 30 or more of us, because they want to keep the groups not too big that you won't be able to know everybody, but also not too small. So it's like the perfect amount of teens involved. Also with conservation, I think ever since I was little, the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle has been like placed in my brain. And when I entered the environmental program, I kind of like fully understood that whole like concept. It's kind of like taught me there's different ways on how I can myself, like as a teen, tell others, you may not think that you can impact the world, but there's small things that can really make a big difference. Like conserving your water at home or conserving the energy. Like there's no need to have the light on if nobody's in your house. Little stuff like that really makes a difference. And I want to be able to tell people my age that they can make something happen. That's why we're here. Like we're the future.
Koemi, that was such a beautiful reminder that our cities can be places that are nourishing, that can provide food. I know a lot of times we forget that, and we think our food has to be grown somewhere else and imported to us. But it just goes to show that, you know, if we make the right priorities to feed and nourish communities with helpful things, and that this can happen through really hard work and using power tools.
Yeah, I loved when you talked about power tools. I think that was something that I learned how to do in high school. I used to do theater, and we would build sets and stuff, and I've never felt more powerful than when I learned how to use a drill. So I love that they're empowering you to learn these everyday skills while you're also helping your community and your environment. And I think that's really awesome that then you can go on to, you know, impact communities after you graduate and beyond. I mean, it's really cool that there are more youths becoming leaders in the climate and environment movement. I would love to know sort of what you're doing for Earth Day this year. Are you becoming more active in speaking out about these issues? And does the program impact the way that you want to see the government and corporations addressing today's environmental issues?
The environmental program, we're doing like a bunch of workshops to get ourselves ready for next week, which is planting week and also arts week. So we're getting workshops ready in order to facilitate the younger folks, like kids like in elementary and like middle school. We're trying to also like teach them what I learned. I'm really trying to, like I said earlier, to get other folks my age to know more about this information. So in my school, I'm doing this research paper for food injustice and food insecurity, because I believe that that is one major global issue that not a lot of people know about. I thought, okay, I'm part of the environmental program. Why not put my information in use and get my school to learn about that? Because all they teach us is the basic things, but they don't really teach us worldwide, like globally. So I thought that was the most important. That's some impact that I can bring towards my future. When it comes to like the government, this is like a very iffy topic, because obviously I can't tell them myself, but I can do something like using social media in order to tell them, hey, you can like do stuff like this. You can portray new ideas in order to help our Earth, Mother Earth, to become better. It doesn't always have to be, let's go in like to technology, or we could go back to how things used to be, but better, like make them, improve them. That's what we need to focus on, improving.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think oftentimes when, we think about climate action and development on a really big level, it's technology is going to save us. But I think to your point, it's like we know a lot of these solutions. And I think it's about, making them more accessible to more people and more equitable. I think that's a really beautiful sentiment for Earth Day. And I think that's kind of the spirit, is making it more inclusive, sharing what we know with others and inviting other people to join us. We kind of forget about that. We see a lot of Earth Day campaigns and sustainability initiatives from big brands, but I really think that's what's at the heart of it.
If I might add, one of the wonderful things about the work that Koemi and the rest of the young people are doing. So when we talk about food injustice, they're taking action on a local level. They run farmers market, so every week they are actually distributing healthy food at really low wholesale cost to folks in their own communities. So they're learning about, how to source food, they're learning about distribution, and they're also learning about how to run a small business. And then also the other group that Koemi mentioned, the horticultural science group, they're actually managing a 6,000 square foot community garden.
Wow.
Right? This garden has, over 30 varieties of fruits and vegetables that are grown there. So the kids are learning hands-on how to grow their own food. They're working with community to grow this food. There are 5 different fruit-producing trees there. So they're actually seeing how you can create an arbor within an urban, environment. And the sustainable design group that you mentioned is figuring out unique ways to grow things. So they're using edible walls, for example. They've got a hydroponic and aquaponic system. So they're growing food and using fish as a source of nutrients. And they're doing lots of cool experiments, but also demonstrating ways to address this problem on a local level.
And that's so incredible to think that's all happening within a city. That really blows my mind. I hope that when we're able to more safely travel, that we from Our Daily Planet can come see this, because this just blows my mind. It sounds so beautiful. To wrap up, I wanted to ask each of you what your Earth Day wish is and what you would maybe hope leaders here in Washington would know about your program and why it matters to you.
It's an interesting question. I think if I
had a loaded one, the easiest and the hardest question.
I wish that our leaders in Washington, and I wish that corporate leaders throughout this nation would recognize that their policies with regard to the environment, with regard to the earth and nature, are currently killing them, killing themselves and killing all of us, killing their children and the future generations. I think they just need to wake up and realize, how important some of these decisions really are. It's literally life and death, and we're seeing it all over the planet. So that would be my wish, that they would wake up and smell the coffee and realize that there are so many lives at stake, including their own. Folks in Washington need to know about our work, and Koemi is proof of this. It's so important to teach young people about the environment. It's so important to help young people to develop a connection to the earth at a young age. We are animals, just like any other kind of animal, and we need the earth for our survival. And so when young people develop that sense of connection and that love for the earth and the environment, then they inherently want to protect it. And so programs like ours that work with young people and really help them to understand the importance of the environment to themselves, to our community, to life on this planet, are really creating current environmental justice leaders, but also the future leaders of our country who are looking at these issues in a very different way. So this is really critical work to the overall movement for environmental justice.
I kind of have the same kind of mentality. My Earth Day wish, I kind of wish they had this kind of mentality that we're temporary. This earth is forever. We got to know how to preserve its natural beauty. We have to make sure that we want to keep it safe, how Jason said, protect it. They should really focus on teaching people my age and younger how to do this, because I'm pretty sure if you ask a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, they wouldn't know. They would be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the park and play. But little do they know that park may not be there in the future. We really have to teach them, hey, if you want to keep this park forever, you may have to plant a nice little seed, make it grow into a tree. The Washington leaders, they should know to create different programs. If there was a Brotherhood Sister Soul in each state, we could be doing something that can become something so much bigger, and maybe, just maybe, our earth might just become even better.
Absolutely. I think that's a lesson that a lot of adults never learned, and they just carry that into adulthood. Thank you both so much for sharing the story of your work. It's really incredible, and I think a really terrific way for us to end our coverage of Earth Week. And we will include ways that our readers and people can hopefully support you, get to know more about you, and the incredible stories coming out of Brotherhood and Sister Soul. So thank you so much, Jason and Koemi, and we hope to talk to you soon and, get an update about other wonderful things you'll be up to. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.